Okay, so today you join me on the banks of the Middle Trent around Nottinghamshire. What we're going to be doing today is looking at targeting big fish with a feeder on the river. And I'm going to run you through all the different tips and tactics that come along with that. And to be honest, I really can't wait to get started. So let's just get into it. All right, so before we get started, I'm just going to run you through the gear that I'm going to be using to target these big fish on the river. Okay, so it is really important, like the tackle that you use. So today with me, I've got a 13-foot rod. This is the Horizon Pro, and it's 100-gram casting weight. So with what I'm expecting to happen today with the river, it's probably going to come up a tiny bit as we're fishing, and I'm not going to be using sort of more than 60 gram to hold the bottom. So I know my rod can cope with the weight I'm going to be chucking at. That's very, very important is in deciding like how you're going to approach it. So obviously 13-foot rod, we've got on the end there, I'll try and show you if I can. Shouldn't hold a rod by that end, but we've got a 3-ounce tip in. Gone for 3 ounce because it's nice and balanced with the size of feeder I'm going to use and the flow we've got faced with us today. It's quite smooth, steady, it's not overly boily, that sort of thing. So anywhere between 2.5 3 ounces sand. And then we've got a nice big 5,000 reel on here, which I've loaded up with braid. Got a 10-pound shock leader as well. Now, the reason I'm using a 5,000 reel as opposed to like a smaller 4 or a 3, simply because I'm going to be winding in a pretty big feeder a lot of the day. So you want a little bit of cranking power there. Also, it goes nicely balanced with the rod I'm using. It's not like sort of too small for the rod, and it just sort of feels right when you're fishing with it. Okay. So like I say, I've got 010 Horizon braid on there, and then that's down to a 10-pound shock leader. And obviously I'll run you through the rig and stuff in a bit. Just got nice comfy setup, got my box here with my platform underneath, feeder arm there, and ready to go. Right, so I'm going to start fishing now. So I'm going to attach my feeder. I've got a 7 square 45-gram feeder to start with. So I've just put that in on there, look. Oh my. And then before I actually attach a hook length, I'm just going to get a little bit of bait out. So I'm going to literally scoop that up and fish and put like literally 3 feederfuls in, not many at all, and then just sort of feel my way into the session. After I've put them initial 3 in, I'm just going to, I'll probably start on maggots. So I'm just going to fish an MXB2. This is to 016. I want to like try and get some bites to start off with, and like because a lot of the time you'll find when you're fishing, even for big fish on rivers, you'll find that small fish will be on the bait first. So like I feel like when you catch them, you can then sort of like step it up as the session goes on, and like when you encounter bigger fish. But I know I can get a bream out on this gear anyway. I'm not fishing in an overly snaggy place, so we should be absolutely sound with that. So let's get fishing. Right, so going on from what I've just done, put a few bait up feeders out with a 7 square cage. And I've only chucked out 4 times, minimal amount of feed really, few casters gone in, couple of maggots, no worms, no corn, nothing else really at this stage, because I really want to just feel my way into the session and what I'm doing. So what I'm going to do is, like, when I start fishing, I've instantly put a smaller feeder on. That's a 5 square cage. You've just got a couple of casters in there, a couple of maggots. And just have sort of like quick chucks at this stage, just really like build the peg up, feel my way into it. you'll probably notice as well at this stage, my ground bait's quite dry. Now, why I've done that is because I want to draw fish up from downstream of me. And when your feeder's going in, it's fizzing, it's like there's a lot of activity there. It's going to pull fish in, really get their interest up. And you'll probably notice like later on I'll start doing it. I'll like start to, you know, wet this ground bait up a little more, concentrating more on the bottom. I might take my feeder up, things like that, and pull them down. And so when I know they're there and in my peg, I can get them feeding. So just gonna, like I say, start having a few quick chucks. So I've got a couple of maggots on there. And really, just start fishing. So I've hit the clip there, and then I'm instantly pointing my rod this way, and then winding down onto my feeder. This is quite important, really. And it's about getting the balance right in your bow and the weight of your feeder. I know my tip's about right for this sort of thing, because what you're trying to do is fish for drop back bites. Really, that's essentially what you're trying to create. Is like when a fish picks up the bait and it'll move the feeder and it'll literally just hook itself. So that's what we're trying to achieve, really. But I can talk to you in a little bit more detail about that as the session progresses. But for now, I'm just going to really just build it up. There we go, little bite there. There we go, that's a good fish. Now, I do actually like to stand up when I'm playing bream, especially because the big fish, powerful, especially in a river, and there's a lot of snags and a lot of things they can get into on the bottom. So you'll notice I'm like putting my rod up this way, got my just trying to like sort of like lead it in and upstream of me, because what I don't want to do is like to get it once it's out that main flow. We're a lot better off. There we go. That's a great start. Sort him out. There we go, look. Great start. It's actually hooked in the top lip, that one. Put him back gently in there. One thing I will say as well, especially on a river, use a big enough net. It's absolutely pointless fishing with and like when you're targeting big fish, especially fishing with a small net. Just use a big enough net to be able to scoop fish. You could be catching fish that are like 9–10 pounds sometimes these days. So it's really important to know that you can get it in your net at the end of the day. It really is. So I'm just gonna put in one I use on the feeder. So that one it's actually two red maggots and a little fluoro one. These are just dead maggots, these. We've got 3 on the hook like that, look. And all with the fat end pointing down. That's the way I like to hook these. So, just don't need to go like gung-ho, just, you know, stay nice and calm, patient. Build a feeder up. So I'm just gonna, again, just tidy that up a little bit so it's nice and just ready to go without hooking myself. Another chuck, see if we can get another one. Okay, so my first and probably #1 tip for fishing for big fish is patience and confidence. And you're not going to catch them if you haven't got the time of day for them. If you're too busy wanting to like reel in all the time, things like that, you've got to have a little bit of patience. You can't expect them to just do what you want them to do. They're big for a reason. They've been around the block, you know, whether it be you're targeting, you know, carp in a commercial, bream, barbel, chub on a river, you know, any bigger fish takes some catching at the end of the day. So you need to give them the time of day. So patience and confidence, which goes hand in hand with each other, is definitely a very, very important consideration. Okay, so another tip for you is bait selection. What I mean by that is putting on a bigger bait can sometimes single you out and catch you a bigger fish at a certain point in the day. You might be fishing away, catching lots of like small fish in that, but whereas if you put, say, I don't know, 2 worms on, a piece of corn, that sort of thing, even like a boilie or a dumbbell or something like that, can sometimes get you that extra bite off of a big fish, where as if you just kept plodding away with like a couple of maggots on or whatever, you were never going to catch that, because a bigger fish hasn't actually got time to get and hold that and grab hold of that bait, because basically all your smaller fish are going to get to it before they can. You know, it's why, you know, carp anglers use big boilies, because they don't want to avoid catching bream, things like that. So it always goes hand in hand with each other. Okay, so my next top big fish tip for you is location. Now what I mean by that is whereabouts in your swim you're actually targeting the fish, not necessarily like where you sit, although when we're pleasure fishing that can be quite important. You wouldn't want to sit on a rubbish peg, but in matches we don't get to decide that either. So I think like whereabouts you're actually targeting in the river will go hand in hand with what you're going to catch. So like, for example, today I'm targeting bigger fish like bream. I'm not going to go chucking right to the side or chucking it down here to catch those fish, although it will work on certain occasions, but most of the time them fish are just going to be sat in the deepest water, probably up off the bottom, and then like go down to feed when they're ready, type of thing. So by targeting the right area, you're going to give yourself the best chance of getting a bite off one. The next thing I feel that is like really important when you're fishing and targeting your big fish on a river, and it goes again hand in hand a little bit with the last thing I've just covered in like location, is that I feel that like quite a lot of the time the fish will be sat up in the water, and you've got to try and like get something that's going to draw them down and onto your bait, so to speak, for want of a better word. So I feel like a fish meal based ground bait is definitely these days the way to go when you're targeting bigger fish on a river. It is in a lot of places, to be honest, because the fish are seeing more and more of it these days. You get a lot of barbel anglers on the Trent putting lots of pellets in, boilies, you know, that sort of thing. So you've really got to like give yourself the best chance of catching a bigger fish, like whether it be bream, carp, barbel, you know, chub. You want something nice and powerful and strong that is going to attract them and hold them in your peg. Whereas like, you know, a sort of more traditional ground bait, it's not as suited. You will catch fish on it, you'll catch smaller fish on it, and maybe if you have an incredible day, you might get a load of big fish there as well. But definitely fish meal is the way to go when you're targeting big fish on a river, 100%. Last tip I'm going to give you is time of day. You know, light levels and stuff, extremely important with where big fish are concerned. Now, that can either be in a match scenario or when you're pleasure fishing. It doesn't matter. Time of day is so important when it comes to catching big fish. Like, if I was here in a match today, I'd be thinking my best times of catching would be first thing, like first couple of chucks, or very last thing in the match. You know, we all have those days where it's golden and you can go and you can just keep catching all day. They're great, but more often than not, they're not. And you know, the same sort of scenario when you're pleasure fishing. You want, if you want to come and catch some big fish, you will come at the right time of day. You want to come like first thing in the morning, or like later at night in the evening, in long, you know, especially in summer, because it's just everything's gone quiet. It's, you know, it's the time of day where they're gonna have a feed. So optimizing the right time of day is absolutely crucial to catching your big fish. Right, so just to give you a little bit of an update, going through a bit of a spell now, and like you do get this, to be honest, with fishing the way that we are. Obviously we're using like natural baits, and you're going to get times where roach and perch and other species come into your peg. Roach are a very aggressive fish, I find, and at the minute there seems to be quite a few in my peg that are having the feeder as it goes down. But as well, the good thing is, I believe, is what they do is they'll bring other fish in. So I've just put a loads heavier feeder on, because obviously the flow's increased again. Got like 75 gram on now, whereas at the start we was fishing with 40. It's a little drop back then. But yeah, it's I suppose so. It's just a way of like working your way through these fish. Turn my bait off, mugged me off that time. Just gonna put a single maggot on now. This can be really good for roach. Just a single maggot on a big hook, or like a head of a worm is a good bait as well. But yeah, just working your way through them, and what happens is like the bigger fish will start to like come back around again and like gain interest as there's like loads of these other fish about. So it can sometimes just, like, again, it's just patience, I suppose, and just understanding what's happening. I'm trying to tighten right down to that, or you see that like little flick. Feels like it might be a skimmer. It definitely feels like a better fish anyway, this one. It's a nice little skimmy bobs. Not a proper bream, but big net coming in handy again there. Just hooked on the outside of the mouth there. It's like, put them back gently. That tells me that they're not feeding properly. And they're a bit, I don't know, a bit erratic. It might be just because there's some extra water coming in. It's just getting them a bit excited. I don't know. Could be the roach that are there. gone in and caught like roach, put like obviously that foul up perch and then a skimmer. So they're clearly swimming around together. I'm going to put, let's stick a couple of small worms on there. So I've just had that one. So he's had a go at the bait. He's had a go at it. Like, definitely gone for it. Like, I've not just like had a drop back bite and then it's like, oh, I've accidentally hooked it in the side of the face. He's actually had a go at the bait. So maybe, and I have tried this earlier in the day of like putting 2 worms on and like fishing a bit bigger target bait, which didn't really work, but now it might be the right thing to do. So we'll have a see. Because the other thing, I mean, these are, like I say, these are small worms at the moment, but they're like ever so good for big fish. Just going to run you through what I feel is a very important part of your feeder setup when you're targeting, well, when you're targeting any fish, to be honest, with a feeder. That's your shock leader, and I'm going to talk you through like why I use what I use and the reasons behind it. So obviously I've mentioned before, I've got braid on the reel. I've got that attached to a small knot there that is on my shock leader. So my shock leader is actually 24 foot long, which is basically 4 arm spans like this. That's how I measure it out at home when I do them. I keep them stored on a separate little reel if I need to ever change one. So what I've got here is a 10-pound fluorocarbon shock leader. Okay. My reason for choosing this is, there's a couple really. One, it sits down lower in the water. It wants to sink basically. So I feel it's helpful in that respect. It's obviously, you know, the low visibility properties are, you know, it's been talked about a million times. The other thing is it's extremely strong and abrasive resistant. So when I'm winding in like big heavy feeders, and a lot of the time on the Trent there can be rocks in there, you know, there's all sorts of like big like snags and stuff where you need to pull your fish through them sometimes, if you're fishing over shelves, things like that. So you need something that's up to the task, and that's what I feel I get from using this particular shock leader. So like I say, it's a 10-pound Fox fluorocarbon. And then what I've done to show you the setup is I've put a little float stop there, just slid it up the line. So this is how I tie them at home. I then put a small little snap link feeder bead on there. That runs nice and smoothly on the line, I find, with that little bead on. I just feel it like balances it a little bit more with what I use. Then got another float stop there that I slide up the line. These are actually the large ones that we do. So I slide them up, make a little twizzle boom, which is actually about 12 centimeters long. That it's got a little loop in the end, and what I then do is I push the last float stop I put on back over the knot. Now I actually like do that with my teeth, and I'll like pull it over the top, and it actually keeps it nice. So like if you imagine when you're casting that lot, it like sits off at a nice angle. And then what I can do with this part is I can vary this when I'm fishing. I can move it down, lock it off like that, if like I'm getting like if I'm fishing for dace or something like that, I'm getting a lot of like bites. I can, you know, I can use them to hook myself against the weight of the feeder. What I like to do most of the time is have it open slightly so that a fish can take the bait and then it will dislodge the feeder, but it's not free running. So there is a little bit of movement in it, but it's not completely free running. So it's actually a really versatile rig. I can as well, if I wanted to, in like slower moving rivers and stuff, I can move that right up and have it as a virtually free running rig. So it's really, really easy in that respect. Very, very versatile. Right, so I'm going to wrap it up for today. Had a lovely day on the river. Hope that the tips that I've given you on catching big fish from rivers help you in your own fishing. And if you like what we've done here today, don't forget to subscribe to the Matrix YouTube channel, and I'll see you on the next one.